I want to spend just a few minutes sharing with you, especially the students, how I had to overcome some difficult challenges, how I had to become more familiar with who I am, and develop faith in my own ability to deal with adversity and seek then the highest level of excellence. One of the fundamental lessons I've learned during my career in communications, a lesson for students to understand and to appreciate, is a principle, a simple principle advocated by a Greek philosopher, Socrates. Socrates strongly suggested that a first principle of life is to know thyself. And Aristotle simply said, be thyself. And Shakespeare added, to thine own self, be true. Why is the advice of these Greek philosophers so important for you and for me today? And I think because our success in life is based on how we feel about who we are. It's based on how we feel about who we are and how our attitude relates to our overall behavior and ability to relate to others. Traditionally, we're introduced to ourselves by others. We're introduced to ourselves by others. And therefore, many of us are subject to go through life needing to be validated by others, by the compelling need to please and then to be accepted by others. Our attitude, the way we think, affects our level of confidence, our self-worth, our self-esteem, and our ability to really like who we are, and our ability to relate to others in a positive way. Another of my favorite philosophers is William James, the author of Pragmatism. James wrote that one of his greatest discoveries of the 20th century was the fact that a person's attitude determines his or her success as much as the person's skills. The fact that a person's attitude determines his or her success as much as a person's skills. I repeat, human resources executives, those persons who determine whether you will be hired or not, now place as much emphasis on interpersonal relations as they do on your skills. This is especially true in this new age of racial, cultural, and ethnic diversity in America and in the global marketplace. Recently, I saw a bit of wisdom framed on the wall of this enterprise, and I was struck by it. And it's very, very simple, but there's so much wisdom reflected in these simple words. And it goes like this: watch your thoughts. Watch your thoughts. They become words. They become words. Watch your words. Watch your words. They become actions. They become actions. Watch your actions. Watch your actions. They become habits. They become habits. Watch your habits. Watch your habits. They become your character. They become your character. And watch your character. Watch your character. It becomes your destiny. It becomes your destiny. At the beginning of the semester of my PR classes at Howard University, I have my students to take objective inventory of their personal traits and characteristics, their sense of integrity, their honesty, their self-confidence, their punctuality, their time management, their self-reliance, etc. And I deem this exercise very, very important for students to have a better and realistic understanding of the defects of their virtues and what they need to do to improve their personality and character traits. Why? Because we have two types of image. One is the image we have of ourselves, and that could be a very biased, distorted, self-serving image. And the other image is our public image based on the perceptions of others. So my first principle of 10 is to know thyself. And let me mention other factors which have contributed to a success I've had in public relations that I never dreamed of. Well, my parents were sharecroppers in rural Alabama, where I was born. What I mean by sharecroppers is that my parents made a living picking cotton, not for themselves, but for others. And I still remember at the age of 6, walking miles to school across a creek, through the woods, to reach a one-room schoolhouse located behind the family church adjacent to the cemetery. And I recall on one occasion in the winter, when my sister and I arrived at school, there was no wood to start a fire in the pot-bellied stove. So I and other students had to go into the woods, into the cemetery, to find a few pieces of wood, some twigs, for us to have a fire and heat, so that our one teacher could have class. But even then, at the age of 6, I had a quiet determination, an intense desire, under the most difficult circumstances, under rigid racial segregation, to get the best possible education, to get the best possible education. So my second principle for success is developing a strong faith in your ability to deal with obstacles and challenges that you will inevitably face along life's way. This is such an important principle that I recall the week before graduating from Wayne State University in Detroit in a journalism class of 7 fellows. My advisor, just a wonderful man, Dr. Sprague Holden, called me into his office just prior to graduation. And as I entered his office, he sat there behind his desk with his head down. And finally, he said to me, "Ofield, you are as good a writer and student as the 6 others in your journalism class. And I have been able to find jobs for the 6 other fellows in your class at the Detroit Times, at the Detroit News, and the Detroit Free Press." And Dr. Holden paused and then added, "Ofield, I'm very, very sorry, but I don't have any contacts at Jet or Ebony magazine." And at that particular time, in 1958, daily papers in Detroit and throughout the country were not hiring people of color as writers, nor as copyboys or delivery truck drivers. However, I did not allow this rude jolt, this painful disappointment of racial discrimination, shatter or destroy my dream of one day becoming a journalist. For I had read Ralph Waldo Emerson's essay on self-reliance, in which he wrote that the genius of Mozart and Beethoven and Plato was their unfaltering faith in their ability to deal with adversity, and then move on to the highest level of excellence. So accordingly, my third principle for success is having a passion, a deep, deep passion for excellence. And this means developing a strong work ethic, working extra hard to achieve consistent excellence. And principle number 4 is developing a value system based on uncompromising integrity. Uncompromising integrity. Because wherever you go, your reputation will precede you. And your reputation is like a whistle and its echo, inseparable. Principle number 5 is simply the golden rule, treating others as you would want to be treated. And this relates to the essence, to the very essence of good public relations, the art of winning friends and influencing people. And principle number 6 is pursuing aggressively knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. Knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. For this will help you to have faith in your own ability to make wise decisions, and intelligent choices in life. Principle number 7 is practicing effective time management. And above all, staying away from the fatal disease, of procrastination. Principle number 8 is maintaining good physical and mental health. And staying away from health hazards. And I think you may be familiar with some of these health hazards: drinking, smoking, etc., etc. Principle number 9 is seeking to give something to others, whether a kind word or just a little time or a friendly deed of compassion, of support. And finally, number 10 is always find quality time for your family. And for the remaining couple of minutes, please indulge me as I just make reference to a member of my family. The week prior to Easter, my 3-year-old grandson, Michael Dukes Victorian, was on spring break from his nursery school. His mother, my daughter, and her husband had to work. So little Michael Dukes Victorian called me and said, "Grandpa Dukes, I would like to spend some time with you." And I responded, hey, I would enjoy that. And my grandson said simply, wonderful. So at the end, so the next day I picked him up early in the morning, and we spent several hours at one of his favorite hangouts, Chuck E. Cheese. After 3 or 4 hours at Chuck E. Cheese, my grandson, Michael Dukes, Victorian, suggested that we should have dinner at one of his favorite restaurants, not Chuck E. Cheese. The food there wasn't good enough for him. So we went to Boston Market. At the end of the day, I drove him home, and I said goodbye to him as his mother greeted us at the front door. And as I was returning to my car, my grandson yelled, Grandpa Dukes, don't leave, please don't leave. And then he added, he says, Grandpa Dukes, I'm sorry. I forgot something. And my grandson, Michael Dukes, Victorian, ran toward me and jumped in my arms. And his brown eyes looked at me. And he said, Grandpa Dukes, I'm sorry. I forgot to tell you I love you. Grandpa Dukes, I love you so very much. And after a long pause, I wiped a tear away and muttered, thank you, my grandson, Michael Dukes, Victorian. Thank you for the greatest joy and the greatest gift in the world. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is my final principle of unconditional family love. Thank you.